I mean, why do these exist? I mean, I think I know the answer on some level. But I mean, if 40% of people are
Okay.
in jobs that are useless, right? And presumably, they're in, maybe, I don't know, either big firms, or in smaller firms, in which case somebody knows that it's useless. Like,
Yeah.
what's how is that sustainable? Like, why, what's going on with the market that supposedly is efficient, that people would want to derive as much profit as possible? Why would you waste money on, you
Well,
know,
very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I think what this shows is that capitalism doesn't work the way we think it does, or what we've got is rapidly becoming something other than capitalism. You can call it either way you want. It's largely a matter of definition. But if you have a lot of small competing firms, well, this isn't going to happen, right? Uh, I don't think there's many firms with 5 employees where one is doing nonsense. On the other hand, there's lots of firms with 1,000 employees where I read one guy said to me who is a bank efficiency expert that said probably 80% of the people working in a bank could easily be gotten rid of. Yeah,
but there's a quality there where everybody sort of looks around, right? I mean, I hate to, show business is one of the few areas that I have any sort of, I guess, experience where I'm not just alone. But there was, it seemed to me that the entire business was designed around making sure that the written word was king, as opposed to any other third elements of a production, because that's the one that executives could pretend like they knew
yeah,
they had input. I can
yeah.
read. It's
That's why
not.
Hollywood is so bad now, right?
Yeah,
Because you
I
have
mean,
so many different people messing with the script.
yeah, the development process, or
Yeah.
like, I'm going to take 5 meetings a day, and nothing's going to happen at those meetings, but it's going to be clear that I'm meeting with people. And but that there is a quality where everybody's just looking around like we're all creating a fiction,
It's
and
interesting that way, isn't it? Yeah.
whoever has the money, we're all gonna like wink and nod and say, "Give us the money. This is what it takes
Right.
to put stuff churning out the other side."
But
And
it should be that way so much. I mean, this is the interesting thing. If you look at all the creative industries, right? Every single one has had, I call it sub-infeudation, a managerial feudalism. I do have these ranks, it used to be there were just editors and there were writers. And now suddenly there's producers. This term they took from movies or something, who are in between the reporters and their editors. And then if you go to like the movies where there always were producers, now you have like 18 different levels of people. These completely things that used to be completely unnecessary. Instead of just like I spin a plot, an idea for a script and this producer likes it and says, okay, do it, or a TV show. You have development where you have all these people making up, sort of proposals and even like clips of for movies that'll probably never going to get made. That's the same in academia. I mean, someone estimated that 1.4 billion euros are spent. It's like $1.7 million are spent every year by European universities on failed grant applications. So we've created all this, internal competition, which is supposed to make things more efficient, but actually means that you just enormous amounts of completely wasted effort. But it also allows for all these different ranks of intermediary bureaucrats or the executives, managers, sort of interfering in things and keeping the balls bouncing and the plate spinning as long as possible.
I mean, I mean, what is driving this, and is it? I mean, is it just simply a necessary thing? Like a dynamic. I
Sorry,
mean,
at all. It never used to happen. I think what a large part of it is financialization. That is to say, the profits on Wall Street and the city here in the UK, in Frankfurt, and all the big economic centers profits are no longer so much coming from making things or selling things as they are coming from rent extraction, from finance. And as I always say, finance is just another word for other people's debts, creating debts and exploiting them. And large firms, even firms that make cars or light bulbs, are making their money largely from their financial divisions rather than their industrial divisions. So they're not making money from selling the cars. They're making their money from lending you the money to buy the cars. So insofar as you have a financially driven economy, then it's not that different from feudalism. You're extracting rents and then you're redistributing it. So the difference between politics and economics blurs. And this is classically true of feudalism, where you really can't tell the difference between the two at all. But it's very much true nowadays because the role of the government has shifted. It used to be the government was there to sort of guarantee your property rights if you're a capitalist, and then you go off and you make your money based on that. But now the government is actually directly involved in extracting profits because I'm trying to trick people into debt or get people into a situation where I can extract money from them. That's all done through the legal system. So the government's directly entailed. But lobbyists write the regulations that regulate banks, and like which is government and which are banks is entirely unclear. Okay, so you have that situation. But in that situation, if you have a huge pot of money and you're distributing it, you're extracting things and then redistributing the money again, and the difference between politics and economics is blurring, well, the logic shifts. So under classic capitalism, you don't want to employ too many people because you want to make profits. But now you have these little empires, corporate empires, and actually, I got some examples of this. This is the sort of the big giveaway. Was this guy who was talking about PPI? It was a big thing here in the UK. It's essentially they found out that banks had made a mistake and they have to give millions of people money back. And I heard similar things about asbestos in America, law firms that were hired to compensate people for asbestos. So here's $1 billion or whatever it might be is set aside and you're supposed to give it out. But what these people would report is that people were intentionally doing it badly. They were mistraining people. They were intentionally putting offices in the wrong cities or destroying documents so that it had to be created and destroyed again. They're just trying to make the thing last as long as possible. You say, well, why are they doing that? And you realize, of course, if they've got $1 billion and they're supposed to distribute it to people, the longer it takes to distribute the money, the more they get to keep.
Because people die, or is it just simply I sit on the float?
No, I mean, it's not like they're giving them a fixed amount of money. They're giving them a percentage of the pot. So the less of the pot, the more longer it takes, the less of a pot there is, the less money they get, the more the company keeps, or the more they can charge as fees in the process.
And so this financialization, basically, other people are making money off of the fat is basically what it is.
Yeah, they're just moving money around, and like the longer they take and the less efficient they are, it doesn't hurt them at all. In a lot of ways, it helps them.
And so, what is the? I mean, I guess what is the solution to this, and who would it behoove in this instance? Obviously, the people who have these jobs, they would like. They presumably they would want jobs that are more fulfilling, or not have jobs. Or
think about it this way. I got a lot of testimonies from people in government, and who basically, in fact, from both sides, both people whose job was to make it as difficult as possible for people to get their benefits or money that, in theory, they had a right to from the government, and they felt terrible about it. Actually, it's quite interesting because some of these guys who are like there to, they're people in homeless shelters and their job was to like kick them out if they don't have the right 3 forms of ID, which usually you don't if you're homeless. You ask, how do people like that live with themselves? Often the answer is they don't. I mean, they feel terrible. I think often the turnover rate is enormous. And so a lot of those people, I'm losing my track of thought here. Sorry.
Well, I was asking
Well, yes, that's
what
the other side. Now I remember. Yes. Okay. And then there's the other side, who are the guys who are there to litigate against them. So because they set up the system in such a way, it's like the contest system again, to make it as difficult as possible for you to get your benefits. They have to have another class of people whose job is to stand up for the person whose benefits have been denied, or to guide people through the maze that they've created to make it as hard as possible for them to get their benefits. So you have like two ranks of jobs. And they're both those people are sitting there saying, this is stupid. I wish these jobs didn't exist. So one of the people I know who's actually a benefit advisor, told me like what they should do is just give everybody money. I'm universal basic income. Just everybody gets $10,000 a year. After that, 15, something minimal, but like enough that you can eat. And after that, it's up to you. And if we do that, unconditional, everybody get the same amount of money, then, 20,000, well, what is going to happen? All those guys can quit. You won't need them anymore. In fact, it's a perfect left-wing anti-bureaucratic proposal, because not only will you get rid of a lot of bureaucrats who are deciding whether or not you deserve this, or whether surveilling you, monitoring you, seeing if you're really married to that person, seeing if you're really using that room, seeing if you're really looking hard enough to get a job. Those guys who like really feel guilty and for the most part and hate their jobs, they can quit. So not only are you reducing the size of bureaucracy, you're getting rid of the worst of them, the bureaucrats who are doing the most harm. And those guys can go all found, create a samba band or restore antique furniture, do whatever they like. They'll be happier and the world will be a better place for it.
And we should say, though, I mean, in the event that happened, the GDP would go down.
Well, maybe, but
right. I don't care, but I mean, that is like another one of those metrics where it's like,
it all depends on how you measure. I mean, like, as people have pointed out, if we had a giant oil spill and covered the entire country of America with oil and then cleaned it all up again, GDP would go through the roof, right?
Right. Yes. I mean, there was a movement afoot, it seems to me, in the early 90s to recalculate this, like to actually like have a negative side on the ledger. Like, hey, I can't go out and breathe today because I've got oil covering my, or whatever it is.